Rabbi Akiva, there's a lot of letters in the Rabbi that he talks about Rabbi Akiva, and he says, what was the secret to his success? The whole question, the whole story with the rock is that he basically kept Seder. He kept Seder. Every day he keeps Seder. Even if you're tired or today you didn't learn as well as tomorrow, it's like that is you have to do that. That's like number one. You gotta keep Seder. And you gotta start the meeting.
Just show up.
Just show up. Show up and sleep on the table if you didn't sleep last night. Do that. You know what I'm saying? But keep the Seder. Pray at the same time. Eat at the same time. Learn at the same time. We're learning Likutey Halachot, the halachas of Mincha Dalid, and it's going on the Torah Samach Dalid in the Tamaran. The Torah there, so I'm going to open up a little bit. It speaks about the vision that Rabbi Nachman had, what's going to be in the future time before Mashiach comes, what the generation is going to look like before Mashiach comes. And one of the biggest things is that there's going to be something called apikorsis in the people. There's going to be a lot of how do you say it in English? Apikorsis. Heresy, a lot of heresy. People are not going to believe in Hashem anymore, so they're going to laugh at it. I think it's a joke. So he discusses the whole thing is that the souls, before Mashiach's coming, their souls, they come from the Chlal Panoi, which is the empty space that God created when He removed all of His light. And therefore our souls in this generation already started then in the times where even Rabbi Natan was the first one to recognize that there was something missing in the soul, and therefore he had to go and learn these Torahs to actually heal that part of the soul. And if you don't heal that part of the soul, then even if you're going to add a lot of light, you're just covering it up and never dealing with the problem itself. But the problem is that you have this thing that's in your soul and that it feels like Hashem's not there. No matter how much Chassidus you learn, how much Gemara you're going to learn, it doesn't matter. You're going to still feel Hashem's not there unless you start working on that part of your soul continuously, and then it's going to fill it up, okay? So it's basically the original tzimtzum that Hashem made, and over there, there's is the source of all the philosophies. Okay, let me explain. When the Shvirat HaKelim happened, as we know, Tanya in chapter 8 says that the Achoraim of the sphere of Chokhmah is what created all of the 7 wisdoms. So they're the backside of Chokhmah. They're not called bad. They're called Chitzonius Chokhmah, the exterior aspects of Chokhmah. Now, within them, there is bad because there's philosophy within them, as explained. We learned that a few weeks ago in Likutey Halachot, chapter 19, the second part, that in each one of the wisdoms, there is Amalek standing at each corner, called an Even HaMagif, a stumbling block that basically could trick you from understanding Hashem's Hashgacha Pratis, that He's involved in your life and all these different things, because it tells you that the Teva is Sholet. Okay, now, this source of all the philosophy and the shilas that cannot be answered, questions that have no answers to them, it all comes from a place called the Chlal Panoi. So therefore, if a person goes into philosophy, then his soul could get stuck there, because you're stuck in these questions that can never be answered. So it says that basically the tzaddik has to go in there because he knows all the philosophies, because he's able to basically learn without falling. He's able to take the souls out of there. Okay, that's what we talked about. He's able to save the souls that got stuck in the philosophy. And it's a whole question about the book Moreh Nevuchim from the Rambam. It's a book in Torah. Why did the Rambam write it? It's a philosophical book. So the answer is that at that time of the Rambam, the people were really into philosophy. They were completely immersed in Aristotle, those kind of philosophies, which in Chassidus we see, like the Tzemach Tzedek calls him Aristo HaMamre, the rebellious one. Okay? That's what he calls him. Okay, yeah.
In the Medrash, it's brought that he converted to Yiddishkeit by the end of his life.
Yeah, I heard about
and
that.
He wrote a letter to Caesar. It's a whole letter that he wrote to Caesar, who was his student, saying, burn all of my works, burn everything that I did.
I heard about that.
Nothing.
It was at the times of Yirmiyahu, or no? It's different.
Yeah.
I think he was involved in there. Yeah, I heard about that. So that's big tshuva, obviously. Yeah. So okay. So what we're saying is that what was I going to say? Oh, so the times of the Rambam, they were stuck in philosophies. So Rambam had to write a book to get them out of the philosophies. We had to write it in the language that they already knew. So he wrote a philosophical book to get them out of it. But for us to go into it, it's not going to do any good. It's actually do a lot of damage to you. It's brought down in the Sfarim that actually takes away your Tzelem Elokim, and it brings you far away from the Shekhinah. Okay, and also one time in the Sichas of the Rabbi Rashab, he writes there that he walked into the Beis Midrash and he saw someone learning it, and then he smacked him in the face, and he said, "Why are you learning this? Everything I know from Chassidus. You don't have to learn that." Okay, so the point is, we see
Remember
clearly
Shabbos,
he smacked the bacher in the face. Is what are you learning that for?
What was he learning?
More Nevuchim, the guide to perplex. Okay, so it's not the best book to learn. It tricks you because the whole thing about tefillah is that it's coming to tell you that something can be l'mayla min teva, and that there's hashgacha pratis, there's only Hashem, and then everything else is saying the opposite, especially philosophy. So if you learn philosophy, you're going to basically question those questions. How could it be only Hashem? Or whatever, like the deeper questions you cannot answer, and then it's going to reach a certain point inside of you that's going to be so delicate that you'll be tricked. You cannot have hashgacha pratis, and you can't. That's what the Rambam's book is called. That's the Rambam's book, yeah. Yeah, because this book was written for the people that were stuck in philosophies, and Rambam had to use what they were in to get them out.
There's an even better book called Guide to the Guide.
Oh, really?
I have it.
And
It's the guide to the guide.
It's really good. It breaks it down so you can
interesting, yeah.
yeah. Anyway.
But anything, all the stuff you can learn through Chassidus, but the main, that's what we're saying. The two ruchas, we're saying you receive the two ruchas from the two spirits, yeah.
So there's no kosher way for Jews to learn Aristotle.
No way. You shouldn't learn it. Now,
There's a lot of people that say yes, you can.
Yeah.
If you find like someone who's a shliach at a Ivy League college.
yeah, you know what to
He needs
answer
to
to
learn this
people.
stuff in order to be able to engage in dialogue. Or else he's not even gonna
Yeah, there was a guy who was a philosophy teacher, and then he became more observant, and he went to the Rabbi, and the Rabbi said, continue your position as a teacher in philosophy, because he's able to influence people. That's like a very hard job to do, but he was already like in that world, so for him he had to continue doing it.
That's where I came from.
You?
Yeah.
I hear you, yeah.
Because I was teaching philosophy.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So,
So for you to know it is
science,
actually part of your mission to help people that are in the philosophies.
But see, the thing is, I figured it out, and it turns out that if you study it deep enough, you realize that there's no depth to it, that it ends before you get to the real answers, and it leads you to Judaism.
It could, yeah, it could. But some people can get stuck in it for years. You've seen that, probably. That it's like their life. Some people it's like that's their life. Aristotle's their
Yeah,
life.
if you keep on going.
Yeah, eventually, because you gotta have.
Work your way out of it and wind up in Judaism.
It's true because it ends in Bria. It ends in Bria, and then you wait. How can you answer all these other questions? You need a tzilus, which is Chassidus and Kabbalah.
No, it says Avraham Avinu already about Bilam's thing that he said like Avraham Avinu didn't want his children to go in the same path he went to philosophy because they
Oh, wow.
if they were not smart enough, they might fall and be stuck there.
Well, yeah.
It's that's it. Yeah, you get like that's why it's dangerous. But like certain people are able to make the way out. Like you made it. Okay, so now we're saying so. Okay, so we said the whole thing was that a person's questions that cannot be answered, you're not going to figure out logical answers to them. The answer is to work on the emunah, because those questions that cannot be answered is comes from the chalal pani, from this place of darkness, and there's no chokhmah that's going to come and answer that question. Okay, so that's what a person's question is. Okay, and we said basically the concept of Mincha is when the day is emptying out, and the next day is a chiddush on the day before. So it's the concept of emunah is to machadesh yourself. So therefore, the time of Mincha is actually to get into the concept that Hashem is in control, and therefore the sages say to be very careful at the time of Mincha, because the time of Mincha is basically when the first day is ending and the next day is coming. So now you're machadesh yourself in your emunah and your questions, and you're able to bring yourself to stronger emunah, which feeds that darkness that you don't have answers for. Okay, that's what we were saying yesterday. Okay, and we're saying that Mincha starts after the 6th hour of the day, because that's when the sun starts diminishing its light. Up into the 6th hour, it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And once it starts diminishing its light, then you can start doing Mincha, because then you can start doing the chiddush of the next day of creation that comes afterward. Okay, and then that's when the tzimtzum starts, basically. Okay, as we said, because the or represents the light. So when the tzimtzum starts, is basically after the 6th hour, the light starts getting smaller. So the tzimtzum is starting, and that's the chiddush you have to do in relation to the next day to renew yourself with the questions, so they won't pull you in to feeling these chakiras and feeling far away from Hashem. So you have to bechadish yourself again, and that's the concept of Mincha. Okay, so the tzimtzum is the strong of the din. All the questions come from there, and that's, as we said, So it says that whenever there's a Avodah Zarah in the world, there is Kfirot and Apikorsus. That's the Avodah Zarah. And therefore Charon Af is in the world. We said that the Charon Af is in the world. We already spoke about this yesterday. About the Charon Af, which is like this, the smoke of the nose from the anger that comes into the world. Mikol Hatov V'Chesed, all the good and light is Hashem's light. It's Tov Hashem L'Kol. And whoever takes away from Hashem the or of the Chesed, Chas Sholem, that how do you take away the or of Hashem? Through Chakirot and Kushiot, having questions. It removes the or and the Chesed of Hashem, and you remove yourself, and then you're actually bringing deen upon yourself. So these questions you have, it comes down with a deen that comes upon yourself, and therefore time of Mincha, which is after Chatzot of the day, is the concept of the tzimtzum, the chalapanui. Therefore the deen is very strong. The questions return to the person. You have to constantly renew it and work on yourself for the next day. Therefore the sages say that in the tefillah mincha you have to be very careful to pray with a lot of kavana and make sure that the time is not going to pass and you should miss it. Chas shalom. Because the tefillah is emunah. As we said yesterday, it says Vayihi Adav emunah. When Moshe Rabbeinu was fighting the war of Amalek, it says whenever his hands were up, they would win the war. When the hands went down, they would start losing the war. So they went and held up his hands. When it says his hands were held up in emunah, so the Targum Unkala says Prishan B'tzilo, it was spread in prayer. Because over there, in the level of the Chalapanui, you cannot ask philosophical questions in your das. You have to only rely on emunah. Now, obviously, there is such a thing as brought down in other Torahs, that the level that's makif over you, which is the things you don't understand, could eventually come in pnimi. So you're always in relation to where you're holding. But certain questions, it's still in a certain level cannot be answered. Even if you understand more and more, you're not going to get answers. So you have to, those things you rely on emunah only. Okay, through emunah, that you believe that over there in the Chalapanoi, Gam Shanim Tzahu Yidbarach HaVechol. You say Hashem is also found in those things that I cannot answer. That's the ikar part of the Munah here. Saying these things I don't understand, I'll never understand them at the current stage where I'm at. Or even when I grow, there's still will be a point of my heart that doesn't understand what happened. Still, a person has to say that Hashem is found in that darkness. The Chalal Panoi, Hashem's there. That's the Munah they have to have. You cannot understand this in intellect at all. Therefore, tefillah mincha, you don't have kriyat shema, you only have tefillah itself, Shemona Esrei. Why? Because kriyat shema is the hamshacha of the mochin, as is brought down in all the Torahs, that when you say Shema Yisrael, Shem Elokeinu Shem Echad, it's as it's brought down, it's the yichud pnimi of chokhmah and bina, which draws down Sheva to the world. So you don't have that in mincha. You don't have the mochin in mincha. So that means you only rely on emunah in mincha. But in shacharis and in mariv, it's a certain level of, as we know, shacharis, every day in shacharis, there's a nesira, just like on Rosh Hashanah as the general nesira, where there's a new light coming down. So to every day in shacharis, you have that nesira also. There's a new light coming down into your moichin, so you're able to use, it's like a time of moichin, the galus, it says in the Sfarim. It's an expanded consciousness time, shacharis. And also mariv has an aspect of it also.
Stuff when you say, the mancha will be a hava, that's right. That's when the nesira happens. In the first paragraph, and the first paragraph is Leman Shemo B'Yahava, for the sake of his name and love.
That's so the Nesira basically means to separate. So it's talking about Adam and Eve when they're in the garden, they're created back to back as one, and they have to have a Nesira separation in order to come face to face. So in Mashalim and Chassidus, it explains if a person is learning with a great sage in Torah, and they're learning Chumash and Rashi together. So the person thinks that he's on the same level as the sage. But once the sage starts revealing deeper and deeper stuff, it creates a nesira. And when the person realizes, oh my gosh, it's completely above my understanding. I thought I understood it. Now I realize it's completely above my understanding. And then only through there, by separating, is able to have a now face-to-face connection and actually get to an actual, real certain level of understanding they didn't have before. That's what the nesira is, and that's how happens every day in Shachar, so you get a new light that comes down. But in Mincha, you don't have that. There's no moichin in the Mincha. You just drop right into Shemona Esrei after Ashrei. Okay, so now, because the Chalal Apanui, there's no questions on it. And the main part of the Chalal Apanui is related to Mincha, because it's the greatest day, it's the greatest part of the day that has Din. Okay, because it's a tokef of the day. When it starts now diminishing, Now the Chalal Panui starts again. Deeper questions come. No moichin there, just Emunah. Alken, you only have tefillah. Okay, now you're gonna say Kriyat Shema, even though it represents Emunah, but it's also really moichin. Okay, so it's Emunah shel bechinat achar bria. It's Emunah after the creation, and it's Emunah to mevatel the chakiros and the afikorsis hashenit that comes from the motarot mishvir to kelim. Okay, so there's an aspect of Shema that is related to Emunah, but it's the Emunah that comes after the creation from the leftovers of the shvir to kelim. Okay, it's not coming to ask the questions in the original questions in the Chalal Panui. Alpha P Shigam Sham Asur Lichnos B'Chakirot. Even though over there you cannot ask any questions on, and only to rely on Munah. Nonetheless, you can have some level of das there, and some yishuv das in those questions. And whoever is zoche is able to understand there with complete dat and seichel, and that's Kriyat Shema, which is B'chinat Emunah and Hamshachat Mochin together. Because after the Bria, after the creation, you're able to find Hashem, even in Dat and Seichel, with Emunah. And therefore, in all the tefillahs you have Kriyat Shema, which is the Moichin, but in Mincha you don't have it, because Mincha is only the Chalal Panui, which is the Tzimtzum, and over there you cannot have Das at all, only Emunah alone. Al-Ken, in Sham Rak Tefillah, you only have Tefillah alone in Mincha, because it's Emunah without any Dat and Moichin, because Tefillah is Dvekus and Bittul and Emunah Levad. That's what Shemona Esrei is. Why? Because it's above nature, above the creation, which is before the creation, as it says, the sages say.
What's above nature?
Meaning Tefillah itself is above nature. Therefore it's above, therefore it's above creation, it's above nature, and therefore it's beyond the worlds, therefore it's only going to the Chalal Panui straight. Now, the sages say that Tefillah is Bria B'Koach, and Torah is Bria B'Poel. So Tefillah is able to create something in potential, and then Torah is able to create something in actuality. Valken Bishat Mincha Mitpalalin Rak Tefillah Levad. Therefore, in Mincha you only do Tefillah, which is Emunah and Dvekus alone, and you don't do Kriyat Shema because it's not a time to draw down the Moichin. Because it's the Chalal Panui that you cannot understand with your moich at all, and you only rely on Emunah alone. Okay, and on Gimel now, Zeh B'chinat Ma Shebishat Mincha Dina Takifa Yoter B'Balayla Atzma Kavuva B'Kavanot. It says in the Kavanos of the Rizal that in the time of Mincha, the Din is even stronger than at night. Because in truth, the main Tzimtzum of the Chalal Panui is the Stalkus Or, when the light goes up, in order that there should be room to create the world. As we said that each day is a new creation. Therefore Mincha is the beginning of the light going up, which means that by the 6th hour and on, you're having less and less strong sunlight. Okay? Okay? And that, so we're saying the B'riat Olam is just a very fast moment in a way with Tzimtzum, because right when you have the Tzimtzum of the Or, so to speak, then you start feeling the tzimtzum from Hashem's light. So what does that mean? When Hashem made a Chalal Panui, right away there was a Brit Olam. It wasn't like time in between. There was no time that existed there. He made a Chalal Panui, and right away he started creating the worlds, which is the revelation of the days and the midas. As we said that each day is a midah, and the creation of the world represents the days, because the first Sunday represents Chesed. And then Monday is Gvura, because you have the Tzimtzum, you have the separation of the waters. Tuesday is Tiferet, because you have the creation of the herbs, etc., etc. Each day has their relation to the Midah that it's related to.
From the Chalal Panui, everything is created, all the creation?
Well, he had to first make the Chalal Panui, and then he made the Kav and the Chut, and then from there started the Olamois and all that stuff. And already in the world, I mean, you have the Shorish of all the things, but it started the Midas and the Yamim. The days and the midas is brought down in the Kabbalah Sfarim.
And that's where our souls also come from.
So we're saying part of our soul has this connection to the Chalal Panui. So we have a part of us that we cannot answer certain questions.
Part of it, not all of it.
Well, I don't know. It could be a part, could be all. Depends on the soul. Depends on the person. But the whole thing of this Torah is basically talking about that if when you heal this part of your soul, then basically you don't feel it. You feel the Muna is able to fill that part of your soul.
Is this like before the world?
What the Chalapanui? Before all worlds.
Before all Silus also?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Before the Tzimtzum, this is the original Tzimtzum. So therefore the Tzimtzum that happens every day is only for a very small moment. Therefore it's only in time of Mincha alone, which is when it's coming closer to evening. Because then you have the Tzimtzum of the Or in order the creation of the next day that comes afterwards. Because as we said, so every day is a new creation, and therefore now it is a Tzimtzum, which is time of Mincha, and then by the time it's night, it's already a new day. So there's like the Or, the Tokef Adin, Tzimtzum, new day. That's how the cycle works.
Is this what you meant what Rabbi Nachman meant when he said he went so high he does nothing?
Yeah, so he went out of the Or of Atzilus, and he went into the Tzimtzum, and the Chalal, Rabbi Nachman, and he went into the darkness, and then from there he went to a place that's beyond understanding. He got to Tachlit Ediyah Shalom Neda, and then he said, I don't know anything. Because you can't answer questions at that level.
He says about himself that he got to Tachlit Ediyah
Shalom Neda, that's what he said, yeah. Like if you ask him what's going on above, he's going to say, I have no idea. I can swear I have no idea. But like if you ask the Rebbe Rashab what's going on above, he'll tell you, I know everything that's going on above. Because look at the Hemshechim, it tells you everything. So it's saying that's at the level of Atzilus. Because you can explain everything in the Seichel and Atzilus. Like everything is completely explained. But there's like a level that goes beyond that. It's like, you can't say anything. It's like to talk, you can't say anything. It's just Amunah and Tefillah. Those are the things that are connected to that world. That's why in the Breslev Chassidus there's only like two main Sfarim. Because it wasn't the goal was to feed that part of your soul and already start doing the Birur Latilava, which is the last Birur in Surah Malchus, which is connected to Tefillah and Amunah. That was the thing. The whole world's going to kind of switch that mode of Tefillah and Amunah. So if you look in the Gemaras, there's so much stuff on Tefillah. Like the Gemara Bracha says, why is it that the early generations, they would get answered their prayers and we didn't? And they said because they didn't have Mesiras Nefesh for Hashem, but the early generations did in such a way that there was no rain in all the land, everyone was starving. So they said, let's make a fast. And it says the moment he took off his shoe, it started raining. That was like how much Hashgacha Pratis they had. And the world's going to come back to that level soon. That through the tefillah we're going to see like unbelievable things. Like, what could I do with my tefillah? You know?
Okay, so they took off their shoes?
He took off his shoe to I guess that's how they did. They started fasting, take off their shoes. The moment he took off his shoes, it started raining.
Wow.
So, because they had Mesiras Nefesh for Hashem.
It should be raining all along.
So once it becomes night, it becomes a new day. Even though night is a tzimtzum, which is darkness, nonetheless, once you have the tzimtzum, the light already starts being revealed inside of it, which is the revelation of the bria of the yamim and the midos. So tonight it's going to be, today is like Yom Revi'i, tonight's going to be Yom Chamishi. So when the afternoon happens, it's going to be like the tzimtzum, and then it's going to switch the next day. Even though the next day starts at night, it's at a level of tzimtzum, nonetheless the or is already starting to go in there for Yom Chamishi. It's already starting to fill that space, even though it's a certain level of din, but by chatzot, there's already no din anymore. It's chut shel chesed at chatzot. Al can take balayla, therefore right at night, chatulayla is already chut shel chesed, comes down. So the bria that's coming down is coming to reveal itself within the tzimtzum of the night, which is the next day that comes afterwards. Therefore we say Kriyat Shema in Mariv. Why? We're already starting to draw down Moichin in Mariv, which is the Or Hamidot V'Yamim that gets revealed inside of the tzimtzum. Like the beginning of the creation, the tzimtzum was there, but now we're starting to create the next day. The midos and the yamim are coming to be revealed within the tzimtzum. And then we say afterwards in Kriyat Shema on Alamita, on your bed, and then Kamim b'chatzot, you wake up at chatzos and learn Torah. Okay, the Shulchan Aruch does say you're supposed to wake up for chatzos The Alter Rebbe Paskin, if you can't do that, you do it once a week. If you can't do that, you do it once a month. That was the thing. Now the Rebbe said it's not the focus right now, but obviously if someone finds that that's going to help their Avodas Hashem and doesn't ruin their Torah study the next day, then it's obviously a good thing to do. It shouldn't stop a person from doing it if he finds that that it's good for his soul. It's not like the focus of generation. And then go to sleep.
Till Chatzot again.
Okay. And wake up for Shachar, he's up before Chatzot. Bust out a quick Shemana Esrei out of bed. And then you're good.
What do you need?
Okay, so now, so through this you're able to metaken Malchus, which is the Klalis of Bria. As it says, Hashem is conducting all of the creation through his Malchut, Asher B'chol Meshalah, that rules over everything. And therefore, at night, you're able to metaken the Klalis of the whole Bria. Until when the day starts, B'or Hayom, you have the revelation of the Or from within the darkness, which is, and then the tefillah is in a way of shleimus, is in a state of completion, which in the morning you have the ikar hamshachat mochin in kriyat shema. Okay, so by doing all this avodah throughout the night, which means you're saying shema at arvit, which you're drawing on the mochin into the place of the tzimtzum. So you're already starting to create creation, which is the days, which are the midas. You go to sleep, you wake up chatzos, you do tikkun chatzos, you're crying over the destruction of Beis Hamikdash, shvirat the kelim, all those things, and then you're already started to rebuild the kelim, and then by the time you do shema in the morning, then you have the ikar habshacha the moichin, and then you're able to have tefillah b'shleimus, ki az b'yom ikar yitgalut or, because the day is the main revelation of the light. I guess it's like the bechina of the kav and the chut. You could say, maybe he's going to talk about that came down to actually create the world, which is the bechina of or now. Therefore, at the beginning of the night, right when it gets dark, and the tachlit, the tzimtzum stops, therefore you're already starting doing the milui, the filling, which is the revelation of the or and the creation. Therefore, the ikar tzimtzum, hu rak be'et tzimtzum, at the moment of the tzimtzum, which is the moment it starts to do tzimtzum, which is when the day is ending, which is the time of mincha. Because when that stops, when it stops mitzamtzuming, which is the darkness of the night, that's the tachlit tzimtzum. Therefore, right when you have the tachlit tzimtzum, you have the revelation of the or from within the darkness. You're able to start the creation of that day. Therefore, we're saying that mincha is really at mincha itself.
I just started again.
Yeah, well. So at mincha itself is the strongest. Is actual tzimtzum started itself. That's like the moment of the chalapan. It's like one moment, and then it gets dark, and then it starts a new day. So it's the ikar at tzimtzum already happened, and then the or is starting to fill it up of the bria of the next day, and that's the avodah. Okay, so now that's what it says in the Gemara in Shabbos. Ben hashmashos keherf ayin. It says the time between the one day ending and the next day starting is like a blink of an eye. Okay, that's why on Shabbos, there's this also that else. But since it says Hashem knows how to distinguish between Chol and Shabbos, because it's just one blink of an eye. But since we don't, we take in Shabbos early. Okay, take it in by Shkia. That's like the halacha, you do it by Shkia. But in the Indian Ruchni, is that there's a hair of ayin when it actually becomes now the next day. We don't know it exactly. Okay, so you don't know what it is. Because the main in of the tzimtzum, the chalapanui, is actually ben hashmashos, which happens every day. There has to be a tzimtzum in order to reveal the next day. But it's only a wink of an eye at that moment. Just like, and it's done. The next day started. Ki hurak sha'a kala. It's one light moment. Because the going up of the light in order for the tzimtzum, the chalapanui, is just to have ayin in order that there's going to be a place for creation of the next day. And right away, there's a tzimtzum that created, and therefore it gets starting to fill up right away. The yamim and the midas, as he explains, that comes from the or in sof, so to speak, and it gets revealed in the chalapanui. And that's what it says. That's what it means. If shallah amor alav. So it doesn't say we don't know what it is. Lo yodim mazeh. It says if shallah amor alav. We can't stand on it. Why does the Gemara say such a language? You cannot stand on it, you cannot understand this. Because that's the bechina of the Chalal Panui, because you cannot understand the Chalal Panui until Mashiach's coming. We can understand it. As it's brought down in the Zohar, says that when Mashiach comes, he's going to first, in the heavens, he's going to go into a chamber. And that chamber is all the names of all the Jews that suffered throughout the Galus. And he's going to put on clothes with the names of those souls on him. And then he's going to come down in the world, because the first thing he's going to tell us is the things that happen with the Chalal Panui, the things we don't have answers to. He's going to explain that first.
To Eliyahu?
Mashiach. It says in Zohar, he's going to explain that first.
Isn't Eliyahu the one that's going to be Tishbi towards Kishasi?
He's going to say, Mashiach's coming tomorrow, guys. Go to Tzfat, okay? All people from Tveria, guys, go hang out at Tzfat a little bit. Mashiach's coming there tomorrow. And then...
Rob, you're revealing yourself?
I'm not in Tveria.
No, but you're revealing yourself.
As what?
Mashiach.
No, that was you, man. I thought that was you.
Nah, man, I'm one of just the heralds. I'm a minstrel.
Okay,
I wanna
fine.
just
That's what everyone thinks.
He's the donkey.
That's what everyone thinks. The donkey. You know, זה בחינת קידוש החודש שנתקשה בו משה. Okay, now Kiddush HaChodesh, Moshe asked a question on why. כי זה בחינת מילה לבנה. Kiddush HaChodesh is when the moon gets renewed, so the moon has to refill. The light has to refill in the moon. It's like the same concept we're talking about. Because the diminishing of the moon is the concept of tzimtzum, as we said. Go and diminish yourself, because two kings cannot use one crown. There won't be room for the creation at all. Therefore, right when the moon reaches the tachlit amiyut, the essence of its diminishing, it already starts to feeling right away. There's no pause in between. Because that's what we said, that the main tzimtzum is just one blink of an eye. Therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu had a question, what's the whole thing about Kiddush HaChodesh? Because even Moshe couldn't understand it, because the Kiddush HaChodesh is the concept of the Chalal Panui. So he couldn't understand it yet either. Until Mashiach comes, no one can understand it. Which is the tzimtzum that...
Kiddush HaChodesh Davka.
Yeah, because that's the bechina.
Not the mullet. Because Kiddush HaChodesh is really, you're really being Mekadosh Kiddush at the zero of the moon. We do it on the up of the moon.
Yeah.
The birth of the moon.
The moment you can't do it.
Is literally a Chalal Panui.
Right, but that's such a small moment you can't. Yeah, you can't. You can't figure it out. Now Moshe asked a question on it, which means that even Moshe can't understand this. No man can understand the Chalal Panui yet. That even Moshe had a question on it. Okay. שאי אפשר לשום אדם לסיקו, רק מבחינת משה, שהוא נתקשה בו עד שגילה לו השם יתברך. Oh, so Moshe asked a question on it, and then Hashem actually revealed to him the answer, as Rashi says. Al ken gila lo zeh asor. So Hashem revealed to Moshe the secret of the Kiddush HaChodesh. Im dimdumei chama. Dainu ben hashmashet. He taught him the concept of ben hashmashet. So Moshe was able to understand the Chalal Panui.
The Chalal Panui is beyond the Kavanah.
Yeah, but Moshe.
How can you bring something beyond the Kavanah?
So he was already like Mashiach levels.
Right, so you could experience the Chalal Panui, but to have a Vanah of something that's intrinsically not able to have understanding of.
It says that Hashem revealed to him the concept of the Ben Hashmashos, as it says like this: Shirao Levan
is not really.
Is the Bechin of the Chalal Panui, the actual Ben Hashmashos itself, which is the hair of Ayin.
Right.
Of the moment.
What we define as Ben Hashmashos right now is not.
Yeah, now we have like a time frame, but the actual moment, Moshe was able to understand that, as he says like this: Shira'hu levana b'chidusha im chashecha. That Rashi says that Hashem showed him the moon in its renewal while it's getting dark. So that means the moment of that change, Moshe was able to comprehend. Because Kiddush HaChodesh, which is the feeling of the moon when it's pagum, that's Ben Hashmashos. Kishmagia l'tachlit amiyut v'atzimtzum az mitchelet l'malot. So when it gets to the actual miyut of the tzimtzum, then it starts filling up. What time is it now, by the way? Here we have a little more time. Let's continue.
15, 14.
Okay, now this is the whole concept of the Yerida before the Aliyah, going down before going up. The Yerida is Tachlit ha'aliyah. So the Yerida is actually the Tachlit of the aliyah itself. Why? When a person goes from level to level, is the concept of Bria Chadasha, renewal and creation. Because you're always renewing yourself when you go into the next level. Titchadesh k'nesher neoraychi. And you're able to become a new Bria. And it says, Ani hayom yilditicha, I have given birth to you today. That goes after a person that becomes a bar mitzvah. So I've given birth to you today. Or at every moment that he's mekadesh and matar himself, and he receives on himself an ol of avoda beyoter, or you receive some more of a yoke of heaven. Every time you do that, you're reborn, so to speak. And therefore it says in the person, Ani hayom laticha. Today I bore you today. Because you become a bria chadasha, you become a new creation. Therefore, before you're zoche to this, to go from level to level, in order to become a bria chadasha, there has to be a yerida, which is the tachlit ha'aliyah. There has to be a descent, which will be the utmost ascent. Because the yerida is the tzimtzum, in order that you can have a bria afterwards. In order to have creation, you have to have tzimtzum. So the tzimtzum is the yerida, so in order to actually elevate properly, you have to first have the tzimtzum. And that's what it means, tzadikim, tchilatan yisurin, v'sofan shalva. The Midrash says that tzadikim, at the beginning, they get yisurim, they get difficulties, hardships, but in the end, they have serenity and calm.
Right. They say, how do you know the difference between something good that you're doing and something bad that you're doing? Something bad that you're doing, it starts with and ends with oi. And something good that you're doing starts with oi, but ends with
Exactly. Exactly. Now,
Start with, it's like a Pepsi, like a Sprite commercial.
the Yisurim.
2 weeks later, you see in the mirror, oi.
So because all the suffering and the challenges, they come from the tzimtzum that happens before the bria. And that's all the menios, the things that are holding you back, that a person has, in order that's stopping him from doing a certain mitzvah or something kedusha. Because everything kedusha, borim olamot, creates worlds. Therefore, you have to have a tzimtzum first, and that's the menios that comes before something kedusha. And that's what it says. Ein ben David ba ela behesach hadat. Mashiach only comes with hesach hadat. What does that mean? Hesach hadat is the histalkus or when the light goes back up, because the main or is dat as is brought down. So when Mashiach comes, which is going to be a chidash olam, the world is going to be completely renewed. It's going to be as if the world is completely built from new. And the main concept of the creation of the world, the way it was in its good form, it's only going to be then. Therefore, we have to have a tzimtzum first. And the tzimtzum that comes before the new rebuilt world is called hesach hadat, removal of the dat, which is the light going back up. You take a kishiyagil tachlit tzimtzum. So right when you get to the tachlit of the tzimtzum, which is the hesach hadat, Mashiach will come right away. Because then we're going to see ki azlat yad ve'efes atzur azuv. You're going to have the complete tzimtzum, and then you're going to have the new creation from new, and Mashiach will come. Amen. We're going to pause it here. So stop.